Today let us discuss about two cycles. One is Cori cycle and another is the glucose alanine cycle. So as I have already told you that the skeletal muscle doesn't contain the enzyme glucose 6 phosphatase. So this Cori cycle and glucose alanine cycle mainly coupled with the liver helps to generate the glucose through this cycle. So the cycle revolving synthesis of the glucose in the liver from the skeletal muscle, lactate, and reuse of the glucose synthesized by the muscle for energy purpose is known as Cori cycle. And the transportation of the alanine, which is produced in the skeletal muscle from the pyruvate by the transamination to the liver and used for the gluconeogenesis, is referred as the glucose alanine cycle. Here what happens in the muscle, there is the glucose and it is converted into the glucose 6 phosphate and eventually it is converted to pyruvate. And if there is strenuous exercise, there is production of the lactate, and from the transamination reaction the pyruvate is converted to alanine. So as you already know that the skeletal muscle doesn't, in the skeletal muscle there is no occurrence of gluconeogenesis because there is no any enzyme glucose 6 phosphatase. So this lactate and alanine is transported to the liver. Again this lactate and alanine are converted to the pyruvate, and the pyruvate is converted to glucose 6 phosphate, and the glucose 6 phosphate is converted to the glucose through the enzyme glucose 6 phosphatase, and this glucose is again transported to the skeletal muscles for the various energy purposes. So basically what I am saying is that the skeletal muscle doesn't contain the glucose 6 phosphatase enzyme, and due to this, when there is production of the lactate, this lactate is carried to the liver, this lactate is transported to the liver for the generation of the glucose, and this glucose which is generated in the liver is utilized again by the skeletal muscle, and again alanine which is produced in the skeletal muscle is transported to the liver and is converted to the glucose, and this glucose can be utilized by the skeletal muscle. So this is the Cori cycle and glucose alanine cycle. Basically involves the gluconeogenesis from the lactate, which is Cori cycle, and the gluconeogenesis from the alanine, which is the glucose alanine cycle. Basically helps to generate the glucose molecule from those two non-carbohydrate substrate, and that glucose which is produced in the liver can be reutilized by the skeletal muscle. So this is the concept of the Cori cycle and glucose alanine cycle. I hope you understood this lecture. Thank you.